Welcome to Three Guys and a Brit, an international podcast where we go over many subjects. As usual, I am Jerker along with Jeej, Windu, and Caveman. Now today we're going to talk about 1. Juneteenth, an American holiday, and 2. Official ruling of Roe versus Wade. But before we start, let's give out a shout out to our top comments on YouTube from the previous video. Shout out to Ashley R and Styles IRL for great conversation they started. So if you want to go, check it out. It's on our last video. But before that, we did skip last week for Father's Day. So congrats to all the fathers out there. And Windu and Caveman, congratulations, bro. Happy Father's Day. I hope you all had a good time.
It was lit.
Dog daddy too.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, with them, bro.
He has a fur baby.
Now, Windu, tell us exactly what is Juneteenth to all the people out there who have zero knowledge about, like me, even though I'm a brown man living across the pond in UK. I have no idea, right? I was uneducated regarding this, so please educate us.
So I'll just lead off by saying that this is a subject that many people are very unfamiliar with, right? So off of history.com, just to read a quick little paragraph here. Juneteenth, short for June 19th, marks the day when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. The troops' arrival came a full 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, Juneteenth honors the end to slavery in the United States and is considered the longest running African-American holiday. On June 17th, 2021, last year, it officially became a federal holiday. So this is officially the second time it's celebrated as an official holiday, right? But I'll tell you, just to throw my like a quick little 2 cents out there, is somebody that was born and raised in Puerto Rico, right? Came over here, probably like pre-teens era to Florida, and then spent my whole life in Florida. I had absolutely never, ever even heard about Juneteenth until they made it a holiday. I don't know if that says a lot about our education system in the States, because it is an American thing, but I've never heard of it until last year. And that's when I got educated.
Yeah, like for me, I literally haven't heard about it, like, because even again, it just comes back to our education system too. So I don't know, maybe we were not, introducing this. I don't know what's happening over here, but I didn't hear about it until a lot of people from, like, when I'm speaking to mostly Americans, right? As who I got as friends on Discord and everything like that, they started talking about Juneteenth, and then I go on Twitter, it's all posting tweets and everything about Juneteenth. So I got a bit curious, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't dwell into as much because I had my own personal things that I needed to do, so I got caught up in all of that. But I was always curious about it, so it's interesting to hear about it from you guys that's more familiar with it, especially, and also talk about it in the podcast too. So go ahead, man. Just educate me, interest me, intrigue me.
I mean, I think it's I'm sorry, Cheech, but I think it's kind of like, it's kind of almost a slap in the face, really, to the people that endured slavery, because you're celebrating something that happened. It was when that general, right? He rode into Texas and he officially told everybody in Texas, "Hey, listen, slavery's over. You guys don't have to keep working, for your masters. Like, you guys are free." But that had happened 2.5 years before that. So isn't it kind of like a slap in the face? I mean, we're something that, I mean, it's almost a tragedy, because those people had been indentured servants or slaves for 2.5 years past what they should have been, right? I mean, that's kind of a tragedy. That's what I think.
The thing of it is too, is when people think about slavery, what's the first thing that goes into your mind? It is within the Black community. People don't realize that there were more than just the Black community that were slaves. Out here, we also got to remember, we had Irish that were slaves for many years past. the proclamation got, in general
Emancipation
history.
Proclamation.
Proclamation. Thank you. But I mean,
don't
we
know
had
about-
Irish that were slaves past that. So
when I went to uni over here, we also spoke about slavery in general. So when I was doing history studies and everything like that, we had a professor who was very knowledgeable about slavery as a whole. So he gave us a couple of examples as well. Like slavery started off in Africa, most of it, right? They had black kings and queens who had slaves, right? So I can see where that point
Tribes enslaving each other.
Exactly. So it's definitely a tragedy, and I can understand there's not only slavery within the black community, but there was slavery outside of the black community too. But it's just the fact is that we know more about black slavery for the fact is that it's in our history. People talk about it on a general basis. We have a wide variety of information out there to the people. And also it was one of the most cruel situations too, specifically within the black slavery.
Well, not even that, man. You gotta remember it's what sells. That's what
Talking about media wise and everything.
Media wise, within the history books, it's what sells. And that's the hard part. Because I mean, you can go back into the early freaking 1700s. There was kings and queens of England had slaves. Vikings had slaves. Your Indonesian royalty had slaves. China kings and queens had slaves.
Like, look at it this way, right? Before the
Not that it was okay.
Before British colonized the whole thing, the first country that they were completely wanted to take control over was the India, right? They wanted to take over the whole India, right? And within the Indian community, you had the kings and queens, from different sections, and they all had slaves, bro. I'm telling you right now, there's no one who will sit there and deny it, right? They all had slaves, and those motherfuckers used to be 10 times more cruel to the people who were slaves than most of the shit that we are known for. We can gather information on the web. You know what I mean? So it's crazy, man. How
even look at Egyptians. They had their slaves when an Egyptian pharaoh died or an Egyptian royalty died, their servants would be buried within proximity of the pharaoh. So they had a difference between servants and slaves. So your servants are the ones that did your cooking, did the cleaning of the palace. They waited on the pharaoh hand and foot. But then your slaves are the ones that did all labor, and things like that. But what people don't realize is there was a lot of slavery. I'm going to put that in quotations, but that wasn't really sometimes it really wasn't cruel. So I remember reading something a few years back because I was curious.
I think it would be fair to say, but before you continue, I think it would be fair to say that even though not all of it might have been cruel, I think it's fair to assume that the majority of it was probably cruel.
Yeah,
majority was, yeah.
So the thing that I read was there was one farm out down south down here, and there was a few things that they got, diaries that were taken from they were found, and they were saying in the thing that they were treated better here, even though they were working in a field for 12 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours, than it was living where they came from. They were living underneath a warlord who was taking and stealing their women, just selling off their children. They were starving and everything else. And then they come over here. They had a small shack, even though they had to share with people. They had a shack, they had blankets, they had food, they had water. So they didn't mind just working because they actually got essentials that they didn't have from where they came from. So that's where people are like, well, yeah, slavery is cruel, which it is. Don't get me wrong. But
I mean,
some of these people probably living better than they were coming back where they were from. They had no disease either because they got medical treatment.
So You just triggered a thought in my mind that slavery happened for so long. We can even say just here in the United States, right? Slavery happened to so long that there were individuals born slave. All they knew was slavery their entire life, right? Just sit there and think about that, bro. Isn't that sus? That you're born as a kid, you're growing up, and you just teach your kid this is normal. This is the way life is. You get me? Isn't that just fucked right there? Because I was reading here while you guys were talking, and like we were saying a second ago, the Juneteenth was basically when they went into Texas and they said, hey, in case y'all didn't hear the fucking news, not okay anymore. So apparently when that happened, 250,000 enslaved people were freed. Not just a couple, a couple hundred, 250,000 were freed. And then the fucked up part, I just read here, some slave owners withheld that information until after the harvest season because they wanted to get that last milking out of them.
The free labor.
Fucked, bro.
I mean, that is fucked. And I think that what makes this chapter of American history and this last go around of slaves so important because of the motivation, because we needed to establish a country off of free labor, and we used Africans specifically, and they brainwashed people to think that we're less than whites. So I think that
to think that shit was okay.
History was racially motivated.
Look at it this way: that the whole thought process, the exploitation of the black, it's been happening since fucking decades, bro. Like, it was the whole whitewashing thing from the get-go. If you look back in the history, right? Even the Greeks used to do that, right? And yes, you are right. It is racially motivated because they wanted to feel like their race was superior to the people who are not fair-skinned, right? And look at it this way, like, interesting fact, as of now, I believe there is 4 different types of slavery, right? I'm not exactly sure, but for what I know, there are 4 different types of slavery. And did you know that there is what you call a modern day slavery?
Yeah,
right?
slavery is still a thing.
Yeah. So as of 2018, right, there is a current slavery situation that's going on. Looking at the statistics over here, right, the number 1 country to have slaves still in their country is India. India has 8 million slaves that they have calculated for, right? Second being China with 3.86 million. Third being Pakistan with 3.19 million. North Korea with 2.64 million. Nigeria with 1.39 million. Indonesia with 1.22 million. Democratic Republic of Congo with 1 million. Russia with 794, and the Philippines with 784.
That's an estimate, bro. That's an estimate.
That's what I'm saying. That is an estimated. That's as of now, right? What's interesting for the fact is that me living here in UK, right, in March 2020, British police records showed that the number of modern day slavery offenses recorded has increased by more than 50% from 3,412 cases in 2018 to 5,144 cases in 2019.
UK?
Right? And in the UK, that's what has been recorded.
Now, is that
crazy.
listed as slave labor? Because there's a difference.
What we had
here in the United States, what was built on it was slave labor.
Yeah.
So there's a difference on when I think about slaves like that is you have slave labor, you have sex slaves, so on and so forth.
So in the UK, predominantly, the modern day slavery comes under forced migrant labor, right? Forced migrant labor. So people basically, they come from a different country, right? In looking for a better job prospect, everything like that. and they go to the shady employer, right, who will ask them to hand over their documents like passports and stuff like that, and they will hold it as ransom.
But that shit still happens in the U.S.
Yeah, I was just
Like-
saying that happens
like-
to a lot of Mexicans.
Like I was about to say, like as a Hispanic, I hear constant issues. Like I've heard of like family members and you know like friends that they have like relatives or people they know. It's like, hey, so they paid a coyote, I think is what they're called. They paid a coyote. Yeah, to literally sneak them into the United States. They snuck them in, but then they're holding them for ransom. I remember my mom telling me one time, it's like, hey, you remember this one person that's a good friend of ours? Their son is being held ransom by coyote, and they said if they go to the cops, they're gonna, you know, like they're gonna kill their kid, and they gotta pay
pinky.
they gotta pay like $15,000 just to release them and shit. And it's like that's fucked, but that shit like that is still going on. And you brought up a great point that I didn't even think about, like sex slaves, labor slavery and shit. Like there's just fucked up people.
Sex slavery,
Trafficking, human trafficking in general.
Well,
Kid trafficking, like bro.
When I lived in California, I knew this guy. He was from Culiacan, and he was telling me about that coyote stuff. He used to work for. He called it. He was a coyote. He used to work for a coyote when he was a kid, just being a scout out. And he was telling me, he's like, dude, you don't realize when they go through their tunnels, on the other side, they have people that literally take everything from them, throw them in a bus, and they drive them somewhere. They don't know where they're going. They just know they're going to the States. And then when they get there, there's like farmers that will just snatch them. Yep, you're coming with us. Yep, you want your green card? Come on.
Yeah.
That's all they tell them. You want your green card? Come on, get you your green card. But little do they know they're working for like 3 or 4 or 5 years. Yes, they're making some money, but what's 50 cents on the dollar? You know what I mean?
Right.
When you're trying to get a green card that costs 10 grand.
Like,
so now
that's the thing. That's the thing over here in the UK, right? I think there was a biggest one. Like you guys got coyote and stuff like that. Like over here, the biggest one. I think there was like 2 people, 2 Lithuanian men, right? That was here in UK, and they had some migrant workers as forced labor, as chicken catchers, bro, as chicken catchers. Right, so they would catch, so basically, this farm used to supply eggs to the major supermarkets over here, like major supermarkets, including companies which you guys might be familiar with, but I'm not 100% sure, like Asda, Tesco, and I believe it was Marks and Spencer, but I'm not 100% sure. But Asda is a company that belongs to the Walmart family, right? So. You know, things like that. And also, most of the migrant workers that come over here, they're forced to work into cannabis farms over here. Right? So cannabis is a big industry boom over here because, you know, as you guys know, it's still illegal over here to have cannabis and stuff like that. So, you know, they were forced into these kind of farms, cannabis farms and chicken catchers mainly. Because, you know, chicken catchers providing all these eggs to major supermarkets is fucking mind-blowing, and nobody came to know about it until somebody tipped the cops off that this is what's happening. Like we saw some, you know, suspicious activity happening around in the farm, but we're not 100% sure. So when they did all the investigation and came to know that these migrant workers that came from, you know, Romania, these places and etc., they were used as chicken catchers. So they would collect all the eggs, you know, and then afterwards 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day. That's what they had to do for little as £2.50. That's literally about
not even a Pepsi,
20% of the national minimum wage, right?
Well, it's like the same thing up here. I mean, like when I was living in New York, there were some farms, dude, that I've been to, just running cattle, that they had migrant Mexican workers that were working at these farms. And yeah, I mean, the farmers, they just didn't pay them like you'd think, you know, I mean, they would pay them some decent stuff. But these guys were like, we're talking, knowing a slick of English, but they were happier than pig and shit, man. They like, because they were actually getting paid normal. And I talked to one who knew a little bit English, and he's like, yeah, my brother's somewhere in Texas, and he's not making anywhere near what I'm sending home to my family. Like, I'm sending home 3 times, 4 times the amount. I mean, granted, it was still a couple $100 a week. I mean, you're not making much as a farmer because they live right on the farm. But still, I mean, you get this, they're working towards that work visa. People are going to do it because they're still going to send money home. You know, especially American money to the peso, I think it is.
Dude,
it's outrageous.
It's like for like $1, it's like 10. For what is the ratio? It's like per dollar. If you have $1 American dollar, it's 10 pesos.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you could feed your whole family with $1. You know, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jeech, because I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, "Oh, these Mexicans and these illegal immigrants are coming over here to take our jobs." No, man, they're coming over here to work the jobs that Americans won't do.
You don't want to work.
And now, especially with everybody fucking hiring, I don't want to hear that shit.
There should be no such thing,
fuck, bro.
But I'm a big believer onto it right now, because especially right here, I've noticed it a lot living here in Florida. But the homeless population, there should be, in my opinion, there should be no such thing as a homeless man. Right now,
bro.
Because of what everyone's just hiring everybody, because no one wants to work. If I was homeless, I don't care if I gotta go find, if I knew where there was a small stream and can go take a bath, I'll go work at freaking McDonald's, post up down in the woods across the road or down right around there, still go take my bath till I had my first couple of paychecks to go get a hotel, take that hotel, next couple of paychecks, start saving up to go get an apartment. It's not hard. Like,
I'm
it's just
telling you,
people don't want to work.
That similar mentality is over here too. Like you got all these immigrants coming from different countries who will do anything and everything just to make a living, provide a better lifestyle for themselves and their family, right? Mad props to them, because they're literally willing to do whatever it is in order to have a better life than what they've had in their own countries and stuff like that. So mad props to them. And the fact is that what pisses me off, right? I hear this most of the time, because me being brown in this country, right? There are some perks to it, and then there are some, shit that comes with it, right? There's always a stereotypical thought process. Oh, look at all these guys, they're coming. Like, most of the brown guys that come over here are doctors, taxi drivers, shit in like all these kind of things where they can make a shit ton of money, right? And it's like, all these people are coming over here and they're taking all their jobs. But the same mentality, like, let me just give you an example. I'll ask my friend, is they like, yo, this guy was unemployed, right? He's unemployed. He's getting benefits off the community, the government, the council. And I turned around and said, yo, these guys are giving you £10 an hour just to be a cleaner in a care home, right? Just to be a cleaner in a care home. The mentality that came behind it was, bruh, that's not the job for me. I can't do that. No chance. There's no way I'll be able to handle watching old people and then collecting the shit from the floor and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, but you're getting paid £10 an hour. It's better than being on fucking benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're struggling to pay your bills and struggling to pay all of this, and you can't even have a good time. Like, for example, when we go out clubbing or whatever it is, you can't afford to, because you don't want to do the job that can help you achieve better, just because it's a cleaning job. Why? Just because it has a title cleaner is beneath you? Motherfucker, you're on benefits. You're unemployed. Having an unemployed title is worse than having a title. At least you don't go around walking around in the society and people sit there and be like, oh, you know what? He's a bum. He can't be asked to do a fucking job. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't sit there and tell me this shit. You're worried about your fucking title. You have a thought process like on all your family members and all your friend circle. Is there like, nah, bro, he's just a bum. He don't want to do no work. Right? Have that kind of a
Well, I mean, I have a thought also about, we're tying it into everything to slavery, about people that have records, because there's a lot of people that are homeless that do have criminal records and they have issues getting jobs, and tying it all back to Juneteenth. I mean, as soon as slavery stopped, vagrancy laws kicked in. So now all these people that jobs because they were they're trying to figure out how to live, and they're seen chilling on the side of the road. And now you're a vagrant. Now you got these back to the plantation you go.
Yes.
You know, and it created generations of slavery type mentalities where they're like, I have no hope. My dad was a slave. He worked at the plantation. You know, I can't afford it. Well, the society around me hates me.
Well, what
you know,
plantation
you bring up a great point. You bring up a great point there. That, and I'll not let you go, G. I'm so sorry. But you bring up a great point that even though, let's say, Juneteenth celebrates the official ending of slavery, like, we all know that the United States is founded on some fucked up shit, whether it was slave labor, whether it was stealing land from the natives, etc. Once Juneteenth happened and officially throughout all of the United States, it's like, hey, slavery is illegal. And I hate to be that guy that says it, but all they found out is a way to make it legal. Keep the same mindset, keep the same people beneath. Like, hey, that doesn't mean we have to give them an education. That doesn't mean we have to give them proper opportunities. That doesn't mean we have to treat them fairly. It's just like, hey man, now I gotta pay you. Well, that doesn't mean I'll pay you right. Especially back then, bro. Be like, hey man, your entire month, here's a nickel or some shit like that.
The thing I was going to touch on was that you had all, like, you know, they came into slavery is done. A lot of these slave owners were like, okay, you know, but these slaves left. They ended up coming back because they had nowhere to go. I mean, granted, a lot of them went. There's a few towns in Texas that were founded and built from slaves that still prospered through, like, you know, the whole Wild Wild West ages and all of them. You know, that they prospered and they made big into there. But what ended up happening was a lot of them slipped into crime. So they started robbing trains. They started robbing banks. They became the whole outlaws thing, where it wasn't just, you know, your John Waynes and your freaking your Kissing Kates and all them. There was some gangs that were slaves, which started. And I mean, that's where a lot of the gang stuff started too, was because a lot of these slaves that left, they had nothing else. They just banded together and started doing stuff where they can live. But a lot of them went back because that's all they knew was, I'm going to go work on the farm. They had a house. They had, even though it was a shack, they shared with 6 people. They still had a house. They had somewhat clean water, and they still got fed at least 2 square meals a day. They got stuff to feed.
So can I ask you guys that might be a controversial question? Do you think Juneteenth should even be celebrated by the United States, considering that people of color weren't even remotely close to being treated equal for another couple hundred years? Still aren't. That's why I said remotely, right? Like, I'm talking about legally treated equal, and even that's in parentheses. No, man. For over 100 years later, like, why? Like, here's the thing. The fact that it officially became like, hey, like, abolished officially, the slavery is definitely something worth celebrating. But in the grand scheme of things, I almost feel like this is the United States saying, oh, well, we'll give you guys a little something because we're not all the way there yet, you know? It's like giving Native Americans like reservations and be like, hey, we'll let you keep that land. That doesn't change the fact that something bigger and worse is still needing to be fixed. Joker, do me a favor on the app. Stop raising your hand. Every time you raise your hand,
it's just automatically doing it.
Is it? Then put your fucking hand down, bro. Every time you do that shit, it says Joker raise his hand. I don't know what's going on.
Hey man, it's just automatically doing it. But what I was saying is, it's a temporary process. All right, it's a temporary thing.
What do you mean?
What I'm saying is, it's a celebration. Like the government saying that this is officially your day to celebrate.
But isn't that just a distraction? Like, I hate to be that guy, tinfoil hat moment. Hold on, where we at? Tinfoil hat moment. Like, isn't that just a distraction to get like African Americans to be like, hey guys, here's something for you to celebrate, even though everything's not as good as it should be. Like,
but it's not,
just a
when you started getting
that's like.
But what Juneteenth started, if you really think about it, was when did this whole Black Lives Matter movement start?
Then years later.
I mean, it's a few years later, but you're not wrong as to the point that
all this stuff.
It might have been a response to it.
To get this to stop, we're gonna give you this holiday for you to show. That's from the federal government. So in my eyes, I don't want to see a national holiday celebrating the end of slavery, or even celebrating the end of like Juneteenth, what it is, because it's still a thing. I'd rather see that happen I'd rather see like the thing where they celebrate for the end of or celebrate the
civil
start
rights.
of like the civil rights. Give us a day for the full civil rights, not just Martin Luther King Day. I'd rather see that the community celebrate that than Juneteenth. Because Juneteenth to me is just a little slap in the face, because it's like, okay,
it's just
what happened after Juneteenth happened? There's still slavery still there.
Right.
I feel like it's just a mask over the whole entire situation, just so people will feel like, yo, I'm happy that they honored our day, kind of a thing, to make you forget all the negative shit that's been happening, right? But at the same time, rather than a celebration, kind of like a memorial day that we have, like, having like a prayer, just to remember all the shit that's gone on. That's much of a better way than turning around and saying we're celebrating it.
Well, no, bro, because here's the thing. Hold on, and
they made it a federal holiday.
Well, yeah. So in 1979, Texas was the first state to make Juneteenth a holiday officially. And then in 2021, Congress passed a resolution establishing Juneteenth as a national holiday. And then Biden signed it into law shortly after June 17th. So it took a while. Like, it's at least Texas has been celebrating this for a while, right? But it took a while for everyone to kind of get on the bandwagon. And my issue is, I'm not mad at highlights, right? Like, for the longest, like, we had like a Columbus Day, right? And technically we still have it. You know what I mean? Columbus Day, celebrating Christopher Columbus or whatever.
Shame.
Absolutely.
Shame.
Yeah. But again, America was founded on horrible
We didn't
shit.
land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
No, man.
fuck?
No, get rid of it, man. Because honestly, all it does is Juneteenth is just where it trends. No, man, it's bullshit. The proclamation had been made before that. So all it shows is that Texas and everybody else was not. I fucking.
No, you're good.
No, yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
Even when you freeze, we can hear you.
Okay. Even then, everybody was not ready to get rid. Lincoln is on record saying that he will do anything to end the war. The whole abolition of slavery was not, he didn't want to get rid of slaves. He just wanted the war to end. He didn't want that negative stigma on him. That's it. He didn't give a fuck about no slaves. He was just
Lincoln had slaves
at the end. Lincoln had slaves. So we're celebrating something. Again, like you said, it's a distraction, man. It's like, hey, listen, you got your holiday, shut the fuck up and get back to work, slave.
Mm-hmm.
All it did was transition from one form of slavery to another.
Well, the thing of it is,
now we have financial slavery,
touching on that too.
I'm sorry.
Getting rid of, like, the thing that bothers me the most about all this stuff, and this is going to come really bad from a white guy, but someone's got to say it, is I'm a really kind of big into history, right? And them going through and defacing and tearing down and putting all these orders in for tearing down, like, the Robert E. Lee statues and the Civil War statues that are there, and tearing that stuff down because it's offensive. It may be offensive, but it's history. You can't get rid of the history that was there because of these people. Don't get me wrong, Robert E. Lee was fighting for the wrong side, but he was still an amazing general. If you look back to how his war strategies were and all this other stuff, he was an amazing militarized general that still to this day, a lot of our military still uses some of his philosophies, but yet we tear down his statue because
I think that's
offensive.
I think that's a very weird line for anyone to travel, because if you go and, hey, we're going to destroy any piece of history that is attached to somebody that's fucked up or that is offensive to us, you low-key, like I said a second ago, you're low-key going to get rid of all American history, because all of American history, I'm sorry to say, but let me not say all. Let me just say the majority, the most historical events literally are based off of fucked up shit. History is written by the victors, by all means, right? Like, and obviously there's two sides to every coin, but if any individual wants to go and erase any history from any person that was a racist, even if you could just stop it right there, let's erase all monuments history of everybody that it was racist, you're low-key getting rid of American history right there.
Oh yeah, you might just tear down might just tear down all Washington D.C.
I mean, the whole thing behind the Confederacy, because we live in the South, guys, so you guys know everywhere you turn there's a Confederate flag. The thing is that, to me, it does represent racism, and it does represent treason, because this part of the country tried to break up. And I mean, at the end of the day,
okay, man, I'm going to break your history on it. I want you to actually look up the meaning of the Confederate flag. Because people, when they talk about the Confederate flag, it's the first thing is, it's about racism, right? It's about traitors.
What it represents, right? Yeah.
But there was a thing with the Confederate flag, and I gotta look it up now. I know Windows doing the same thing.
Yeah. So my
memory's kind of falling on me, but there was really, on the meaning of the Confederate flag, there was actually no racism done for it. Like, it was actually the way that the stars and the stripes went, it was meant for something else. And like I said, I gotta pull it up a little bit, but that's what I mean. Like, it's
right.
People see that and they
counteract.
automatically think racism.
Let me counter that with the swastika, right? The swastika is not a racist symbol at all. In fact,
it means peace.
It goes to Hindu, right? In the Hindu culture and the religion. I mean, it's something it's a beautiful thing. But of course, Hitler took that and he fucked
when used by the wrong.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, that's a great example. When even something of peace, a symbol of peace, is used by the wrong people, it just becomes associated with.
Like, look at it this way.
The swastika's been in the United States before, done by the Native Americans. It's been done by the Native Americans.
You can go, Joker. Hold on.
No. For some reason, it just put my hand up for no reason. I'm just looking at it like,
Jesus Christ. Stop putting your hand up.
Anyways, look at it this way over here too, right? Right now, over here, there is a far-right fucking party over here that uses the Union flag, right? The Union flag is pasted all over, and it automatically associates to fucking racism, this, that, and everything. It's just a fact. Like, again, what Windu was saying, it's just when used by the wrong person and the wrong set of people, it will have a negative connection to it. And when it's having a negative connection to it, people automatically assume, as soon as they see the Union flag, that motherfucker is racist, right? You never know how people take it.
Now, Joker, like, look at this, like the Z, right? Just the letter Z. That's the letter of my last name. It's just a normal letter. But now that they're on the side of all these fucking Russian tanks, now that's a negative connotation. Now you see a Z, you're like, oh, bitch, you're pro-Russia? Like, people will take that, and run with
I feel,
it, and
I feel like some of it is fake outrage by a lot of people that, especially on the internet, right? I've seen a shit ton on fucking Twitter. Fucking Twitter is just like a rabbit hole that keeps digging. You just go from one side to another side and you're like, what the fuck is this? But I feel like some of them are fake outrage. People just want to create a buzz and kind of create this kind of thing. Like, let me ask you this: where the fuck did that letter Z even become popular? On the fucking internet, right? On the fucking internet, it became so popular on the internet. People associated automatically to it. So again, it's just people. Some people are fucked up, right? People are fucked up, legit in this world, right? There are some shit I can tell you, but that's for the next podcast. But people are fucked up in general, bro. And again, most of the time it's like mostly keyboard warriors that want to represent something. You know, they feel like they belong to something and feel like they're sheltered by this community. But you know what, let's be honest, that motherfucker comes in front of me, and if he tries to say something, you're gonna put him down instantly for the stupidity that he just portrayed in front of me.
So
Right?
let's
Like, come on.
let's segue right there in legit the stupidity of people when America has literally been created on wrongdoings, right? And let's segue into this Roe v. Wade.
How about it? Yeah, I was gonna say about the stupidity of the American people removing the chance for abortion. I mean, okay.
So I'll do the same as we did before, right? Just to basically give a little bit, if people don't know. Long story short, it was a law case. It was a lawsuit in the state of Texas. I don't know what the fuck is going on with Texas in this month, right? But I guess it's just a Texas thing. Essentially, Roe v. Wade made it.
Steers and queers come from Texas.
Jesus, bro, I can't with you.
Shut the fuck
Shut the fuck up. But
Everything's
Sorry.
bigger in Texas, even their issues, right?
Right?
I guess.
Anyways.
But anyway, so this law made it so individuals couldn't be criminally pursued for an abortion. Everyone from doctors, the females that were getting the abortion, etc. Right? Now, officially, as of June 24th, 2022, Roe v. Wade basically got overruled. It's no longer into effect. Now, I'm gonna do a little bit of research here while we talk. I did hear somebody say that there could still be state laws that get applied, that apply exceptions and, you know, medical exceptions and shit like that, right? But as a whole, the whole consensus going throughout, whether it be on the internet, people's minds, etc., is the fact that abortions are basically, as a whole, are now illegal. And that comes up with the questions of, you know, extreme cases, like, let's say, for example, medical abortions. Like, I'd love to, I'll tell our editor right now to play a clip on the screen that we all watched before this, and I think that clip is amazing. It's from the perspective of a nurse. I'll go ahead and have them play that. But so it's basically the fact that there are so many different scenarios where an abortion, even though I understand, I sympathize with people saying, hey, you know, that's still killing a life. I understand. I sympathize. You're telling me that also while you're smoking a cigarette, so that's a little weird. But
Taking a shot.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I sympathize, but there are scenarios where an abortion is necessary, right? Like, as somebody that literally just became a father, as somebody that was in the hospital room talking with doctors saying, hey, there might be something wrong with your baby. Like, if we leave the baby inside of your wife, it literally, like, that could be harmful for your wife. It could be harmful for the baby. Like, you get me? Like, even though that's not officially an abortion, there are scenarios just like that where there are thousands and thousands of females out there where it's like, hey, if you keep this baby inside of you, this baby will kill you. Or or in the video that we saw, I'm sorry, we see an example of, there's a condition where the baby's literally born without a brain. Like, as soon as that, like as soon as that baby is out in the real world, it will die. why would you put somebody through the trauma of going through a whole 9 months of that? Like, there's a lot of scenarios, right? We could sit here and say
It's something like that with where you're talking about the medical. So there was a baby that was born with pretty much without a brain, right? And they tell you that because they can see that through the whole process. You know what I mean? So now they tell you that now you have 4 months to your pregnancy. Now you have 4 months of going, my baby's dead. You know what I mean? I'm carrying my dead baby. All right.
Yeah,
but now where I
fucked up,
I just left thing. But now where I'm gonna wait for Windu when I say this, just because this is where it gets really controversial for me. But I'm gonna touch on something else though, and start that now.
While you're holding on to that conversation, it must be tough for a lot of families out there, you know, and a lot of people out there when this ruling got overturned for you guys, you know, because that scary thought process, if somebody's going to, you know, for example, I don't know if this is gonna get a videos demonetize a channel, get a strike or whatever it is.
Well, that's why I'm trying to walk softly, because I don't know.
Let's just say there was a situation for an individual, right, and got attacked by somebody, and then afterwards she was forced.
And that's where that's gonna. Now that's where it's gonna come into what I was gonna talk about with that Joker. So, what I'm a firm believer now, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I am against abortion to a point. The thing of it is where I'm against it to a point is to medical standpoint. All right, if there's something wrong with the baby, that
you're like in between is basically on the matter is what you're saying.
So where it's going to go to where if there's medical emergency, or if let's say, knock on wood, I'm just using this as an example. One of your guys' daughters was attacked by somebody, right? And she ended up getting pregnant by her attacker. To me, that's an abortion, right? That's worthwhile of an abortion. I wouldn't tell you any otherwise, because then that's trauma for your daughter to give birth to an attacker's baby, that she's now got to resent that baby for the rest of her life, because that's all she sees is her attacker when she looks at her baby. All right. Or again, medical. Now where I'm against it is for the fact of some dumb little uneducated woman or some dumb uneducated young man go and have sex without any protection because they're not being properly channeled by their parents, and now they're going to have an abortion because they're fucking 15 years old or 16 years old. Or
I think it's important real quick to throw us a little bit of facts out there while we keep talking about this too, because I do know a lot of people generalize, and a lot of people literally will just they'll find a Twitter post and then it's automatically a fact. You get what I'm saying? So this is at least specifically in 2019. Okay. So in 2019, the percentage of legal abortions by race in the United States, 33% were white, Caucasian, 38% were black, African American, 21% were Hispanic, and then 7% were labeled as other, just any other general, right? So I only want to point that out before we keep talking, because literally like before we started this recording, I saw a friend of mine share on Twitter that, like there, for every one white girl that gets an abortion, there's 5 black girls that get abortions. By making this illegal, you're putting black people at risk, right? So I did hear that argument in itself, because that's what prompted me to do a little bit of research on there and at least bring up that information, right? There's no doubt that making abortions illegal is going to put a lot of young women at risk, right?
At risk.
Like, it's because here's the thing, making them illegal does not mean they'll stop happening. That's the first thing I want to throw out there. And then making them illegal literally makes it to the point where typically when we see that case of abortions that you were talking about, Gigi, the whole like, hey, they got knocked up, they either can't afford a baby or don't want a baby, right? Typically that's in a low income poverty situation, regardless of the race, right?
Well, yeah, statistically it's in a low income poverty, but it's also, you do see in a lot of privileged areas as well. Because if there's, let's say there's a privileged young girl and she fell in love with a kid that isn't well off, right? Parents make her get an abortion. Or the other way around. Some rich little white kid,
Yeah, I could see that.
knocked up some girl that lives in poverty. And even though those kids may be in love, their parents don't see it. Now the parents freaking pay for that abortion. But it's at that same standpoint of what you got to look at is,
which is so fucked, by the way. The fact that that's even a thing that happened. But
it is. You know what I mean? That because it goes on the standpoint. It is what it is. You can't change it. It's gonna happen even if it's illegal, anyways, because there's still money makes the freaking world go round. All right. Now you're saying also with medical standpoints, depending on what state by state, is that also going to affect insurance? Is this going to be covered by insurance? Because you don't want insurance companies to start getting repercussions of allowing these medical things for abortions. Are you going to have to pay for these medical abortions out of pocket? You see what I'm saying? So there's also that standpoint. But the thing of it is, and I'm going to, kind of go like a really wide turn real quick.
I got something to say after. Go ahead.
All right. Go on a rant. In a lot of our abortion stuffs, where does that stuff used to go? All right. When you abort a baby, where does that go? All right. It goes into a tube, into this vat. Now, where does that stuff go? Where does that unborn fetus go? They used to use that unborn fetus for a lot of scientific, the stem cell, the scientific research, and all this other stuff. There's a lot of stem cell research that goes into our vaccines that we give our children.
That's an interesting point, because there is a bigger side of cause and effect besides just the abortion.
So now how are we gonna, do for so long they were trying to make stuff out of stem cell. There was a big push into stem cell research. All right. So how are we going to establish stem cell research now if we did remove abortions? All right. And it does sound bad. Like I said, there's always these cause and effects. Abortions were good for this. Abortions were bad for this. Abortions were good for this. In my eyes, I know, like I said, I'm in that in between, as we established. Not against it, but not for it. But man, I'm there for the science of it. I mean, that's.
I want to also. I want to throw a statistic real quick, back as far as the number. Because I also don't want people to be like, oh, fact check this and that, blah, 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 right? I will say there are state laws that can be applied, and there is a bigger issue in certain communities per state. Like if I sit here and the exact same 2019 statistics and I filter it by which state, like if I go to Mississippi, 74% of legal abortions in Mississippi were black. 74%. In Georgia, 65%.
In that area.
Alabama, like
demographics.
Yeah, for sure. But then at the same time, if I go to white, in Vermont, 90% of legal abortions were white. West Virginia, 83%. Montana, 83%.
And that's weird for Vermont, man. Like, it's coming from someone that lives so close to Vermont. And this is not a knock. This is what we used to call them all the time. Those tree huggers, man, that's really surprising.
You just called Vermont tree huggers. What the fuck?
But
I can't with them.
But we don't know what those abortions were from.
Yes.
I mean, it could have been a medical need. It could have been a rape case, an incest case.
That's just abortions in general. It doesn't say the situation.
As a father of five kids, and I have a way.
6 total.
Obvious, I'm pro-life.
You need to stay off your wife, by the way. Give her a break.
Get off of her. Get a TV.
Jesus.
But the thing is, Let's go do the podcast, guys. Gives me something to do.
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
I mean, I'm all for preservation of life. I mean, whatever we can do to keep alive, it's precious. I mean, just us being here. I mean, we had to fight off millions of our siblings to be here. You were the winning sperm, guys. You know, so we had to go through this whole journey to be here, right? So I treasure life, but I also treasure free will. You know, when I believe in God, and I believe that when God created us, he gave us free will to choose what's right and what's wrong. So it's up to us to choose whether, okay, I made a mistake, I have a kid, now am I going to keep it, or am I going to hit the reset button? Because the unfortunate part of, guys, is that there's going to be a lot of kids that are bred into abusive situations because the parents did not want them for whatever reason. They didn't. Now this kid's gonna have to go through a life of pain because fucking 6 guys in Washington D.C. that have nothing to do with anything decided to choose for everybody else. And that's the problem.
Same thing on their free will, though. Yeah, there's free will into the abortions, right? But there's also free will into adoption. There's many families out there that would love nothing more than to have a child that just can't.
Right.
And they at that point, they don't care. They're going to love that child if it comes from their spouse or not. But it's the same time. So with free will is, yeah, you have that choice, right? But there's also other alternatives. That's where it's a big controversy of it, where, yeah, God gave us free will, but God also said it's against his will to murder. And that's where people say that it's murder. You see what I'm saying? So that's where that.
So let me ask you guys a question. I'm going to state a quote that I read online, right? And this is for a politician, right, up in DC. And I quote, "There's one person that isn't being considered in this whole pro-life, pro-abortion scenario. And that's the person that's fate is being determined. Everybody making a decision already has their life. Imagine not being able to make that decision." And unquote. And I will say that those are pretty strong words. I can tell you, as like when I heard that, I was like, you know what? I don't really like politicians, but that was very well said.
But at 26 weeks, man, they don't even have their fingernails.
I don't know, man. And I think as soon as you get that heartbeat, boom, that's life.
Oh, no, it's life.
It's
life. Don't get me wrong. But Joker, I have a question for you, though. I have a really quick question for you. All right, I'm gonna go like this because you're over here from me. But I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna rebuttal to what Caveman said here in a second after you finish that one.
How are abortion laws and abortion in the UK? Like, how does that stem down to where we are? Kind of ordeal.
It's nothing like how it is in US. We do have a choice of having an abortion. It all comes down to a certain specific numbers as well. Medically, especially when you go there, if you got 2 people over here, right, decided to fucking hell, my hands are raising. Sorry. But yeah, so the thing over here is you still have a free will if you want to have an abortion or not. But before that, they will ask you a string of questions, right? Especially when you go to a clinic over here, right?
Yeah, like they'll do psychiatric evaluations and shit like that before doing it.
Shit ton. They will ask you for the well-being of you as a person, if you can afford it, if something went wrong, etc., etc. So, like, me personally, I am pro-life, like Caveman, right? At the same time, I'm also religious. Right, like I'm like, yo, if I choose to have a child, and if even by mistake or even planned, I'm still gonna keep it. But let's just say my girlfriend was in the middle of a thing, she was having a thing, and somebody decided to attack her. Now she's pregnant with that, right? I'm like, no, because forever she's going to keep that in that mentality that she was attacked, and that picture is always going to be in front of her. And
For the rest of
again,
her life.
It's a lot of trauma.
and again with
Oh.
and again for Windu too. Like when Windu was explaining about medical situations, bro. Honestly, as much as I love to be a father or love to be having a child or whatever it is, but if that's going to affect my wife or my partner in any way, I, without a doubt in my mind, I will choose my partner. Point blank. Because at the end of the day, I still have an opportunity to recreate life, right?
Right.
But my partner is my partner. End of story. You know what I mean? I love her more, right? And I decided to choose to spend the rest of my life with her. So
This
that
is
is
more
much
over a
important.
child.
Yeah,
shit.
more
And
over
I'm the same
child,
thing. Like
you know?
I had that question asked to me before was, hey, if your wife was laying in a hospital bed and the doctor looked at you and said, Mr. Wood, we're gonna have to go through and say, we need to ask you the baby or your wife. Which one would you pick? And it was easy. It was my wife. You know what I mean? We can make another baby.
But at the
But
same
then
point,
at the same time, they said, well, what if the doctor said there's a small percent chance we can save both, but a larger percent chance that we can lose both? What one would you
Yeah.
pick? You know what I
gotta do
mean?
what you got to do, bro. Save your wife.
And that's what I
Save
mean.
your
Like
wife.
it's at that same time too. And it's like, but in deep down in those seconds of you deciding that, don't get me wrong, there's so many snares that run through your head. I mean, not keeping the baby. I mean, it's a baby. If it's save my wife and the baby's got to go, okay, it's going to sound really cruel, but save your wife. But when he tells you there's that small chance we can save both, it kind of like gives you that weird twitch. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
is there time for a miracle? And is that miracle going to come today? You know what I mean?
Okay, so my wife, she's due in October 22nd. That's when we're gonna have our baby. But before that,
Congrats again.
It's 28th,
Congratulations.
I think November 22nd.
22nd. So you're
No,
22nd
October
one on
22nd.
the 22nd.
October 22nd. No, man, but I mean, so before this pregnancy, we unfortunately went through an ectopic pregnancy. That's where the egg got fertilized and into the fallopian tube instead of into the womb, I guess, for lack of a better word, my ignorance. But it was a pregnancy that it was where it wasn't supposed to be. So you have the options like you presented, Cheech. Like, what do? Because at that point, there's a very small percentage of ectopic pregnancies that are successful and they come out. But for the most part, it's very, very painful for the mother, right? So we had to make that decision, man. And I'm pro-life. Of course I want to see my child, but we had to make the right choice. And unfortunately, abort, for lack of a better word. And it's crazy how the universe works, how God works. Boom. As soon as that happened, he blessed us with a baby because I guess it was meant to be, right? So the thing is that you even though it was a medical procedure, it was something that needed to be done, you still live with that. You still live with the regret of, man, maybe if I would have chose to keep the baby, I would have had my son, my daughter with me, who they would have grown up to be. The thing is that there's a lot of people out there that they're making a decision and they're not necessarily living with the consequences. It's a reset button for them, and that's my biggest issue. Again, God gave us free will, and if you do you, boo boo. But the thing is that you have to live with that for the rest of your fucking life.
Yes.
Like what I was
that
going
affects
off,
generations.
like what I go off
Sorry.
of you. But what if I go off of you? What Cayman just said, right? Now there are some choices that's gonna happen, right? Let's just say, now I get it. Having a baby is a beautiful thing. Blessed thing in the planet. Right? For God's sake, my hand always keeps raising up my son when keeps distracted. But it's a beautiful thing on the planet and it's great. Now,
Amazing.
when, you know what I mean? And I wish I will be into that situation soon. Hopefully.
Same.
Hey,
Hopefully.
you will,
Yeah.
guys.
But here's the thing, like what you were saying, there are choices to be made. Now, you decide to choose to have the child over your partner, right? But now I have to be the one to console the child where every time she asks me, what happened to your mom? What happened to my mom? Right? I'm the one who has to go through that, like explaining situation for that child, because, and then, you know, bring him up in this society, in this world, without having to know the feeling of having a mother, like his or her own mother, right? The love of a mother, right? And that shit is difficult, man.
Oh no,
It's
that's one of my
difficult.
biggest fears. But I
You
mean,
know
that's,
what I mean?
and don't get me wrong, you know, sometimes it happens. You know, fellas out there that are single fathers, because of that happens, where you know you lost your wife during pregnancy. You know, it happens, man.
That's
You know,
tough.
kudos to you. You guys are doing great.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. But that happens. But that's a fucking fear, man. It almost
it
to
is
the
a
point
fear.
where it doesn't make you want to have kids for that fear, because it could happen. It could happen to anybody. And not even that, your wife or your partner could be fully healthy. They could be fully healthy. That's all it takes is for their blood pressure to drop and that doctors not be able to bring that back up. That's all it takes. And
that's the thing. Like for me, you know, single parents out there, you know, much respect to you, much love to you all. You do a great job in doing so. But at the same time, I also want to say, like, when people are not very wise when it comes to having a family, you need to think before you even engage, because you don't want to later on regret saying that I want to have a reset button. I wish I didn't have a child, because that shit's not fair for either party. It's not fair on the family members that has to deal with all of this, right? And also, let's just say you decided to come to this thought process later down the line when your wife or your partner or your girlfriend is already 4 or 5 months down the pregnancy stage, right? How the fuck can you sit there and tell me that you want to reset? Why did you not have that brain cells and the capacity to use a protection or even think of that particular point? Right?
or when you found out you were pregnant.
Yeah. Why was you not wise then? Why are you wise now?
Right.
Now suck it up, right? Because you decided to, you know, be intimate with each other, right, without using protection, and now you're pregnant, right? Suck it up and take the responsibility.
You know, and that's the thing of it too, is that there's, like, you know, sometimes you have to fucking grow up. You know what I mean? And that's the thing of it. And now the thing where I get it, all right, you're a young teen where you're 15, 16, 17, accidents happen. You're out there, you know, experimenting. You're doing what you're gonna do as a kid, or a kid, but you're starting to become into an adolescent, young adult. Granted, shit happens. All right, it is what it is. Okay, cool. You know, you were definitely nowhere near ready to have a child, to bring a child up into life, whatever. All right, that happens. Adoption is a great idea. Or if, you know, it comes down to it, abortion, whatever. But what gets me onto it is you're 26, you're 25, you know, you're 24, and you just wanted to party. And now you're pregnant. Now you're going to get an abortion. That's where that's like, come on now.
Let me say this, Cheech, because you know you brought up a good point. Well, what about adoption? You know, and that's on the best case scenario. It's a beautiful. It's like you said. There's people who birth kids and will treat that child like it's their own, and will give them the best life possible. But we also see on the negative side, you know,
foster care system isn't that great.
No, it's not, bro. You're running these kids through the system. But there was this show on Netflix. It's called I'm a Killer, and one of those people, it's about folks that are sent on death row, was adopted by this one gentleman. This guy was loved by the church, by the community. He was, you know, a great upstanding citizen to everybody else, but behind closed doors, he was a monster. He would rape this kid. He would abuse him sexually, physically, and this kid ended up growing up and murdering the guy that adopted him. because he put him through. And now this kid went from foster system to getting raped to now being put in jail for the rest of his life and being put to death. You know, and it's like the statistic either. You know, there's going to have to be a lot of reforms, a lot of changes to the application process. And then even then, man, you know, like we've talked before, people on this may look straight, but underneath it, you don't know what storm they're going through.
Capable of it.
You know, and we're going to be tossing a lot of innocent lives into that chopping block, man, where there's going to be a bunch of pedophiles. Let's get it, man. You know, and it's fucked up. It's fucked.
Yeah.
And that's what the Supreme Court doesn't get, is that once you take the choice from people, you take their free will from them, they're going to resort to some fucked up shit. You know, there's going to be a lot back in the 1800s, like the market, abortion clinics where people are pulling kids out with clothes hangers and shit out of the mother, like fucked up shit. That's what people like. People on the far right, they're like, yeah, man, fuck, this is great, this is awesome, man. You don't understand the severity, the consequences that are gonna come about with this action, man. There's gonna be a lot of hurt kids out there, man.
So
there are pros and cons on every aspect, right? So the main important thing is now, like obviously for your guys, especially in US, they have to, like, you know, when you said each individual states will have their own laws, right? Which is still mind-boggling for me that each individual states have got different laws for different shit, right? But the fact is that, like, they as people have to sit there and try and better and reform better. So for example, when it comes to adoption side of things, creating a very better application checks, guidance, doing all the screening before these people who wants to adopt can adopt that child, right? And that means it has to go through a scrutiny, right? Like, I mean, when I say scrutiny, they have to go through a fucking shit ton of scrutiny before they can adopt, right? And I can understand it's like, you know, the waiting period for them is going to be frustrating, along with the child, this, that, and everything. But once you go through that scrutiny, and if you think that you can carry on monitoring them until the child is thing, fair dues. You know, you're going to have a beautiful life, you know, all of this. But at the same time, for the abortion things as well, again, we got free will. You know, you guys say land of the free, home of the brave shit, right? You guys need to have freedom too, right? You want to have that freedom. You say land of the free. How can you be free when everything is questioned? And how can you say that everything is got a stop to it? I can, you know, it's just
the only time you're free in America, Joker, is if you have money. That's the only time you're free, brother.
That's it, bro.
And that's in this whole abortion thing and the long ends of the lines. It's about money.
Well, people that have money are still going to be able to get abortions. Joker just said they're still legal in the UK. People that have money are still going to be able to fly over and get it done over there.
Different countries.
But the thing of it is, you got to look at it this way. All right, it's with abortions. There's no money in abortions for the states, for the government. There's no money in it. All right, but there is money in adoptions. There's money in foster care systems. Each state, each kid that's put in foster care, it's because they become what they call a ward of the state. All right. Now, each ward of the state is granted X amount of dollars from the federal government to that foster care system, which in that foster care system, when they put them into foster homes, those kids now get a systemic from the state, which the state gets a kickback from the federal government. And then those checks go to the foster parent. Now, it's doing is it's just, you couldn't get that with abortions. You were losing out on almost 10 grand off a child.
But also, I feel like now this is where it comes as, this is also now, if you're saying that it's illegal to have abortions, right, it could fall under criminal case. Right? It's a crime. Let's just put it that way. It becomes illegal means crime, right? So what do we know about America from the outside perspective? I would say something. It's the similar shit that happens over here, right? Crime brings in money too, right? Crime also brings in money, right? You guys who are in, like, who's got criminals in the system, right, inside the prison, you make $50,000 per year per inmate.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more than that, actually.
So if now this becomes illegal and one of this person goes inside prison, they're also making money off of this thing.
Part of the
not
system,
just from
man.
Not just adoption, but also through criminality and also, etc., etc. There are so many various things.
That's a new form of slavery,
and
brother.
again, this is all comes down to the capitalistic venture that America was built on, right?
Oh, I mean, this is a whole different episode, but I'm going to throw this little stinger out and, probably just start pulling in our wraps on all of it. Little tea for probably next episode if we all want to talk about this. And it is prison reform.
That'd be interesting to talk about.
Because it is because of the fact that prison reform really needs to be touched in America. When you have even in the UK, where you have almost, I don't know the statistics off my head, but I want to say it's right around 50% of Americans are incarcerated, or 25% of Americans are incarcerated. Bro, that's a fucking big number.
It benefits the state from having each prisoner within the system, right? And to carry on doing this thing again, like I said, you guys make 50,000 because all of the prisons are privately formed prisons, right? And the government utilizes
some of them,
like most of it, majority. When I say all of them, right? Yeah. Majority, right? And this is privately owned prisons, right? By organizations, individuals, etc., etc. But
don't go too far, Joker.
50,000 per year per inmate. Now that's a lot of money, right, for one person.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How many people are there in the system in that prison?
Oh, a lot.
Right. Exactly.
But I guess.
So it's a money-making scheme again, and also they give you this prison reforms within the prison that if they work so and so, they get paid so and so. Now again, that falls under slavery thought process too. Again, right? But you know what I mean? Like the whole entire thing, it again comes down to the way,
it's a circle.
It's like a recycle.
So we'll go into it without getting too much into it, because that would be a whole nother episode, right? The last thing I'm gonna ask here before we end it, right? I'm just gonna pose a question, and this is just being devil's advocate because I have heard this counter argument be used, right, for people that are against abortions and such, right? And it actually has to do with what a caveman said a bit ago. The whole, if it has a heartbeat, it's life, right? So I've heard the counter argument, and I'd love to hear all your responses to it. I have heard the counter argument that says, if you're cooking food, but it's not finished cooking yet, is it still food? Yes or no?
Yes.
The answer would be yes.
Yes.
So if the heartbeat isn't there yet, what stops it from being life?
Nothing, because you can't have life without a heartbeat.
But that's what they're saying. Like, it's still life even if the heartbeat isn't there, because it's in the process of being created. I've heard that argument, and I'd love to hear your guys' take on it.
The argument about the brain, that because there's no brain, if you took the fetus out of the womb and just left it, of course. But that's the same argument with the folks that are born with cerebral palsy or are autistic. You know what I'm saying? Their brain's been not
disabilities,
full capability,
learning
life, man. You still have a soul. Yeah, learning disabilities, or somebody that may be completely brain dead. They're still alive. They're still alive, man. And we've heard cases of people waking up out of a coma 20 years after the fact. And so there's that debate. Well, what do we do? But it's still alive, man. I'm
gonna put this on record,
man.
I'm gonna put this on record, and this is 4 of you motherfuckers that can testify to it. If I ever go into a coma, my plug better never be pulled. I don't give a fuck if I'm not on that bitch for 45 years. And this is a testament. I'm marking this down. Never pull my fucking plug.
Yeah, I'll jump on that shit with you, bro. You better. I'll wait for Walt Disney to come up from cryo freezing and wake my ass up.
Yeah, like, but
I'll make sure I got at least one Airbnb out there to keep the bill running. You know what I mean?
like, don't. But then this fact, and the thing what you said, Windu, with that statement is, if you're cooking food and it's not done yet, you know, is it still food? Yes, because to me, it's just kind of a back ass argument that someone decided to try to make, because you can cook peppers and onions on the stove. It doesn't matter if the peppers and onions are still raw or they're fully cooked. They're still food because you can eat them either or. Same thing with a steak. You can eat a steak, freaking go cut the cow and put it in your mouth. You can still eat it. But at the same point of abortion without a heartbeat, is it still life? No, because once your heart stops, you're done. Your body doesn't come back.
Again,
your heart is stopping, but your brain still isn't dead. That's the thing. Now, your brain isn't dead. You know, after your body dies, your brain still functions for up to 7 to 12 seconds. You still have full brain function for up to 7 to 12 seconds after your body is fully dead. After your last heartbeat, your last air leaves your lungs, it's 7 to 12 seconds. So that's why people say, like, they see the light, you know what I mean? And all that's because they're literally, their brain is still trying to fire off neurons, because your brain is a massive muscle and it's full of electricity. So
like,
it's a weird thing.
Heartbeat. Yeah, man. Listen, if there is no heartbeat, that means there is no life, because heart is the one that gives life for the whole body, right? But your brain is the one that develops consciousness for the rest of it, right? Your brain is the one that makes you aware of situations. But without a heartbeat, you're not alive, bro. You're not.
No,
alive.
your brain is your soul.
Aware. You're aware of the situation because of the brain, but without a heart,
your brain is your soul, and that's the way I put it. When you said caveman, everyone says a soul. No, your brain is your soul, because your brain was gives you your personality. Your brain is what's
identity,
your decision, your characteristics.
Yeah,
at that point,
if you're brain dead and you're a vegetable, man, you're just. That's all you're doing. You're just a vegetable. And
froze there for a second. Yeah.
No, and that's what it is. That's for the hard part. Now, they still may be living and everything else, but it makes me wonder too. Is I'm gonna pull this little teaser onto you guys as well. If you're brain dead, are you actually fully brain dead? Because they only say we only use 7 to 10% of our brain, or 13, or some stupid shit like that of our actual brain.
That's been proven as a myth, though. Just to throw it out there.
No, but I mean,
like, we use 100% of our brain. Like,
but is it the power that we use? Our actual, like the power that we're able to use? We still use 100% of our brain, but is there still more that our brain can do? So if you're brain dead, are you still fully brain dead? You know what I mean?
We're only counting the fact that somebody's able to communicate with us using verbal, and you know what I'm saying? In their brain, they might still be thinking. They might be reminiscing. They may be thinking, I'm like, how can I get the fuck up? You know, I could hear my family. I could hear the doctor around me about it.
That'd be the scariest shit ever, bro. When you're still in there, but you can't send a signal. Like, you feel me? Like imagine to the point, like you couldn't even blink. You're literally there, like, I'm right here, guys. Nobody can hear me? Like, in your mind, and it just... That's what. Anyway,
my question to you all is, before we wrap it up, my question to you all is, because we are not lawmakers, we're not decision makers, and anything like that, I would just love to know: do you think it's okay to tell a person who's in a relationship, not in a relationship, who's gone through trauma, life, poverty, abuse, this, that, and everything, to tell them that abortion is illegal? Do you respect their decisions, right? Or do you not respect their decisions?
So
I got one.
Hold on. I've heard people say the guy should have zero opinion. Let's say it is a relationship, right?
I'm about to ask you.
Let's say it's I'll use me and my girl for example, right? Let's say we decided we just ended up pregnant, and I'm not saying this is the case, but let's say my girl doesn't want it and I want the baby. I've heard people say her body, her choice. The guy has zero opinion, right? Now, I would understand that argument if it was a third party. Who are you to give an opinion whenever it doesn't even involve you, right? You're trying to make a choice for somebody else, right? I understand that argument in that example wholeheartedly. But I can tell you that if that were me in my shoes, I'd be like, hey, that is also my kid. I feel like even though it might not be my choice, I still am entitled to my opinion, and you should at least listen to my my opinion.
Still entitled to my child.
Right.
So that's a very weird place to be in, because I've heard both sides. A guy should have zero opinions about it. A guy shouldn't even have a word. He doesn't have a uterus. A guy, the whole shebang, right? I've heard it.
The thing of it is, if
it is my child,
I'll carry it.
That's the thing. Like, if it is my child, I would literally sit there and be like, hey, I wholeheartedly respect the opinion. Like, at least we're in today's modern day that you could literally pull a baby out even at an earlier terms, and they can do this whole hey, synthetic, test tube baby, synthetic embryo, grow it, whatever. But even then, to that whole point, there are a lot of men out there that do have their children taken away from them because the mother doesn't want the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're willing to be single fathers, hey, you don't ever have to see this baby. You don't even have to be a part of it. This is a great guy that would absolutely love and cherish this kid and give it the best future possible. But that option is taken away from them because the mother decides to. So that's a very weird spot also.
It should take 2 signatures for an abortion. That's where I've always been to. It should take 2 signatures.
That's good.
And then if they need to have the full abortion, if you want to run a full abortion, it needs to have 2 things in happen: 2 signatures and a DNA test. As long as that DNA test matches that father, they can sign that paper.
I'll say this: I have a buddy that's actually going through this situation, right? To the point where his girlfriend says, "I'm pregnant," and he's like, "Sweet, I'm gonna be a father." 2 weeks later, she says, "I'm not keeping the baby." He has no choice. So now he's like fuck, his whole world just came crumbling from under him. You get me? His whole world came crumbling from under him. Yeah, it literally it's yo, hey, we're gonna hang out for sure. But then 2 weeks later, the girl texts him again and says, "Never mind, I'm keeping the baby."
Fucking emotional roller coaster. She's lucky that your friend's a big man, because that would drive a regular person, a normal person, just fucking batshit crazy. And probably, if even she did decide now, she just says, "No, I'm getting rid of the baby." Dude, he may want to make sure he's in a stable mind, because he may just snap and go kill the bitch. You know what I mean?
I've had to be there for my homeboy, because that's not an easy spot to be in, right?
No.
But there are plenty of individuals out there, because just like there are fucked up guys that have done horrible shit to women, they shouldn't be forced to carry that baby, right? But there are also fucked up women out there that might even use the option of an abortion as a manipulation tool. You get me?
God, yeah.
Fucked up. That's fucked up. You're an evil bitch if you do that, by the way.
It's just like the old school, "I'm pregnant just to get back with you" kind of thing.
Let me put this out there, guys, because I heard comedian Patrice O'Neal say one time, they asked him about the whole "my body, my right" thing, and what he said is that the moment you get pregnant, your body's not yours. It's an apartment for that baby. You're carrying human life, and it's not yours anymore. You're sharing it. And that's kind of the sentiment I feel the same way. If you're a woman enough to lay down and dude. And same thing with guys. If you're man enough to lay down and have sex with a woman, you need to be man and woman enough to raise this kid. Make sure that it has the best life possible. Just make
You
that
don't have to do it together.
I'll hit the reset button, but I'm gonna take this with me. And I'm gonna grow from this, and I'm gonna be better. So when I do get my kids, I'm gonna give them every fucking thing I have to make sure I have the best life possible. That's the message people need to get, you know, because everybody's, oh, it's my body, do whatever the fuck you want. No, it's not you. You affect everybody around you. If any one of us decided to take our lives, it's not us that we're affecting, it's everybody
Everyone
around
else.
us. It's your mom, your dad,
it's
your
not
sisters, everybody.
But it's not even
And
that. When you decide to
exactly.
take your own life, it's not even, you're just not even affecting your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother. You're affecting your friends too. I mean, I've had a couple friends. I've had a couple
People
friends
love
that have taken their life, right? And
Like,
one of my good friends,
me-
and I'm not going to use any last name. His name's Troy. He was very troubled, but I tell you what, man, this guy, he was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul. Really kind of dark on the end. He was kind of a little gothy, you know what I mean? But he would give his shirt off his back for anyone, no matter what the circumstance was. But man, this kid was troubled. He had a troubled home. He had everything else. His brother was a Marine. All right, two different people. But he took his own life, and it just didn't hurt his family. And if he could have seen the support that he had, that was there afterwards. Yeah, you had the little cloud riders that showed up because, you know, he killed it, you know, he took his own life, you know, the wannabe friends. But if he actually seen the people that cared about him, he never would have took his own life. You see what I'm saying? So that's at the same time where I look at a baby with abortion. That baby never got to see the amount of people that would love and care for that child. So why take that from?
No, but
We could have cured cancer or cured AIDS, you know?
Yeah. Go ahead, Joker.
My point on that is, look.
And let's end on Joker's point too, because we are taking.
Yeah, I like.
It's getting a little long.
I respect women's rights. I'm a big advocacy for women's rights too, right? But when they say shit like it's my body, my thing, I understand the perspective. Let's just say if you happen to be in a circumstance that you were not in control of and you were not able to control it yourself, like for example someone attacking you, this, that, and everything, I completely understand what you want to do after that, right? But if you're in a relationship and you went and you had consensual sex and decide to have a child after that, I think equally it has to be two people that'll have to sit down, and then along with the people that they respect and love, to actually help them with the decision making on what they want to do and how they need to move forward, right? I believe having a support system around you is very important, right? So that you can have that consciousness and the thought process on what will help you, and how you can look for options around to see, oh, I got my aunt that's going to help me, or I got my mom that's going to help me, or I got my dad, etc., right? You got all these options. Look at all your options, look at all the decisions that you can have and how it will help you and how it will affect you later down the line, and then make a choice. But without thinking of the other person and without sitting there and realizing that you're in a relationship and you decide to get pregnant because both of you had consensual sex, right? And then afterwards you became pregnant, and then you decide to say, I'm deciding that I don't want to have a child. No, you sit down, speak to your partner, see if it's what he has to say, right? And then go off of the decision that both of you come off with, right? Not just what you have to say for yourself, because then it just comes across as you're a selfish, manipulative bitch. Right? Because then, like what G told earlier, if this brother decides to snap, right, you're going to be sitting there going that, oh, this is the reason why, blah, 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 all of these things. And again, you're going to have a situation, you're going to be in a difficult spot to come out of again, right? And it's like the whole recycle situation. This happens, and you come back to this point again. It's like you're not helping yourself. But on that note, I thank you for letting me finish that off.
Yeah, got you, homie.
But hey,
But yeah, man. So
one more small little thing, guys. If you do, and this is for everyone out there, man. If you do feel like you need help, please talk to somebody. Call your doctor. Talk to your parents. Call a hotline. I mean, I know there's a woman. You can speak with a nurse. There's a woman's hotline out there. And I mean, we touched a little bit like on that little bit of suicide rant I went on to. But if you're feeling that, man, call that hotline. Please talk to somebody. Communication is always key, not just in your relationship, but communication is key for everything.
Healthy
and
life, yeah.
I don't even give it. I don't care
be
if
ashamed.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if you pop into Windu's stream when he's streaming on Twitch, at Windu the Mace at twitch.tv.com, you pop in there, man, and you say, "Hey, I need to talk to you." It's very, very important. I know he'll give some time right around in there to pull information to talk to you. Same thing with Joker. Same thing with myself. We do believe in helping people to be able to help them make themselves better. But it gets to be said on that note, guys.
Even if it's just as simple as leaving a comment on our videos,
Amen.
We read them. We'll reply to you. We'll talk to people. Join our Discord. Our Discord is growing. That's a direct line to all of us. Anybody that ever needs to talk about any conversation, even if you just want to have like a healthy debate. To be honest, like it's always there and it's welcome. But on that note, guys, go ahead.
Can I propose something? And this is for the listeners, and leave this in the comments. Do you think like decision v. Wade and what the Supreme Court did? Do you think those votes should be for the people? Just put that in the comments. Should we be the ones to decide with our bodies and with our children?
You talking about like a presidency, so to speak? Like, should that be something that the people vote on instead of politicians?
We vote on motherfuckers that run shit. Can we vote on whether we want abortion or not? That should be in the hands of the. So put it in the comments.
That's a very strong statement. We have a bigger choice in who's America's next idol as opposed to what happens medically. Yeah. So
come on.
That's interesting. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it.
Guys,
typically we do keep it about an hour. This one extended a little bit given the subject. So hopefully you guys understand, but we really do appreciate it. Don't forget that you can watch these videos on YouTube, and the podcasts do get uploaded in audio format after the fact on all major platforms. So we do appreciate it. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on these subjects. We read them, we engage with them, we give you a shout out the following episode. So thank you so much, guys.
And also, we have got an Instagram account and Facebook page. So feel free to go ahead and check them out. If you want to leave any kind of comments over there, you are more than welcome to do so. But yeah, it was a good podcast today, guys. It was very interesting. It was fun to know about Juneteenth, right? And appreciate you all talking about difficult subjects.
For sure. Much love, homies. I appreciate everybody on this cast.
Peace out,
but
everybody.
We'll catch you on the next
Peace.
one.
Love.
Peace.
See you later. Don't forget to wipe.
Blessings.
Dickhead.